Should Miami be rooting against the Golden State Warriors and former Heat star Jimmy Butler? Well, we'll debate that and more on today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat. Whether you're tuning in on YouTube or your favorite podcast app, thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. I'm Wes Goldberg here with David Ramil. Both of us are credentialed Heat media members who cover this team every day. For daily content on the Heat, click that subscribe button on YouTube. Make sure you're following us on your podcast app. Your favorite podcast now has a newsletter introducing the Locked On Heat daily newsletter, one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com to start your day with the all-new free Locked On Heat newsletter. A little bonus episode here on Monday. Make sure that you go back and listen to our full episode breaking down the regular season finale, the Heat's various playoff paths, draft pick scenarios. But I want to take a look at the other conference here for a second, David. The Golden State Warriors, our old friends, our pals who traded for Jimmy Butler. They, like Miami, are also going to be in the play-in tournament in the Western Conference. They're the 7th seed in the play-in tournament. They're going to be playing Memphis this week. If they win, they'll advance to the playoffs. And if they lose, they'll have to play the loser of the 9-10 matchup between Dallas and Sacramento for a chance. The Warriors have a really checkered past in the play-in tournament. Steph Curry is 0-3 in play-in games. They have never won in the play-in. Now, a couple of those seasons came for really bad Warriors teams where Steph was really carrying those teams. So, not necessarily the best example here, but, they were good. They were pretty decent last year, and they lost to Sacramento in the play-in where they were the clear favorite in that one. So, look, I think it's I think it's an interesting spot for the Warriors to be in, but I just wonder for our sake, should Heat fans be rooting against the Warriors specifically because of the Jimmy Butler of it all? What do you think?
Yeah, that is a really tough question. It feels so petty, and we can't tell anybody how to fan or anything like that. But I just also feel like, to me at least, Jimmy is doing his thing. He left the team. It's over. It's been a couple months now. They got their win. They proved their point when the Miami Heat beat Golden State in the regular season back in March. At the same time, I don't know why you would even bother focusing on Jimmy at this point. Let him go through whatever he's going to go through. Let him deal with that. I can't imagine Heat fans really caring that much, but there's a part of me that says they probably will, just because there's still a little anger there, a little resentment that maybe they didn't get the revenge that they wanted just by beating him back in March. They wanted a little bit more, want him to lose in the playoffs and see, if Miami somehow advances to the playoffs and Golden State's get eliminated in the play-in tournament, I wonder if Heat fans would take some comfort in that. It probably feels like they would.
It would be a bummer if the first time the Heat missed the playoffs in so many years, the last time the Heat missed the playoffs was right before Jimmy Butler arrived. And then Jimmy Butler leaves and they go right back to missing the playoffs. That would be, as much as you might want to tank or whatever, and the difference between the 11th pick and the 15th pick or something like that, and being in the lottery and not being in the lottery, whatever it might be, just, separating all that out of it, just the pride part, like the dumb fan pride that is kind of meaningless, but the reason we do all this anyway,
yes,
is that I totally understand. Like, if the Heat fall out of the playoffs and the Warriors make the playoffs and maybe even advance in the playoffs,
That would sting.
That would have to sting. And I remember talking with Tobin, a couple weeks ago, and he made the claim that, like, if the Warriors, this is when the Warriors were really playing well with Jimmy Butler, and there's been a little bit, and I want to get into this, a little bit of a realization here with the Warriors a little bit and Jimmy Butler lately, but when they were really playing well, I made the claim that it wouldn't much matter if Jimmy Butler went ahead and won a championship with the Warriors, and Tobin just said, he called me out, and he's like, what are you, crazy? Like, of course that matters. Of course that's a reflection on the front office. Of course that would be a failure on the Heat. He would do the thing that the Heat were never able to do, which is win a championship with Jimmy Butler on the roster. And, that's separating a lot of nuance out of the conversation, but mostly true. But it is factually accurate. And no matter what, if that's the result, that's the result, and it would sting, right? That would be something that you would have to you would have to grapple with, and I think would force yourself to ask some tough questions about why couldn't we do that?
I know the reason for it would be Steph Curry. That's the difference.
Right,
That's what
exactly, sure.
That's what
But
would
it wouldn't
lead.
be
That's what.
something like you never acquired somebody close to the level of Steph. It was so clear, and we talked about it a million times, and the Heat knew this in their heart of hearts. They needed a true number one scorer next to Jimmy Butler, and they never were able to get it done. Now that he has one,
Right.
we've seen what it could look like.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like for lack of trying, too. I don't know. This conversation has been so beaten to death at this point. I know a lot of Heat fans have a lot of resentment towards Jimmy, but they also have even more resentment, perhaps, towards Pat Riley, who's become the figure for this front office and his a failure to acquire the superstar. It wasn't for lack of trying. They can't control what superstars come here. I know that 2010 spoiled a lot of Heat fans to a huge degree. And you go back even further, like they were able to acquire Hall of Famers and Alonzo Mourning in '95. They were able to acquire Shaquille O'Neal in 2004. They got LeBron James in 2010. Heck, even getting Jimmy Butler, a kind of quote unquote wash star in 2019 was a major coup. It's not that easy. You look around the other teams, like the other teams are like jealous of Miami's success of being able to acquire said star. You can't just go out and you can't find stars growing on trees and just pick them off easily as what Miami has made it seem like to Heat fans. So I understand the argument there, but again, they tried to get Damian Lillard, they tried to get Kevin Durant, they tried to get Donovan Mitchell. Just those options weren't available to them, and we'll never get the full nuanced explanation as to why those conversations were non-starters or just because they couldn't get it done in the case of like Portland and Joe Cronin. So I don't know, man. Like, at this point, that Golden State's a better team. They've got Steph Curry. It's clear that Jimmy is not a superstar and he's not capable of carrying a team to that same level. That he did so as often as he did for Miami kind of speaks to him more than anything else. But he's aged. He's not the same player he was a couple seasons ago. He's not going to be able to carry the Warriors if they somehow lose Curry in the play-in tournament. So I just kind of put it all past me, and it's just like look forward, look and don't look behind, because at this point it would just be futile to do so. To Tobin's point, I guess it would matter, but it really shouldn't. It feels like it shouldn't. Like, who cares? Like, Jimmy went, he's gone. He's a Golden State Warrior now. They've got the better team. They've got Steph Curry. They've got the championship experience there. If he goes and wins a ring, well, so be it. You know what? I think it almost underscores what he was able to accomplish in a Heat uniform a little bit more. At the same time, it shows that they were missing that said superstar, that number one scorer that Steph Curry provides.
Yes, I hear everything you're saying, and you're right. And this is initially where I was.
But
if he's lifting that stupid the Larry O'Brien trophy, that's going to suck. It is. It's just going to suck. And I feel bad even saying it because it shouldn't matter.
I don't know.
And there's part of you that wants the best for Jimmy Butler, but this is not because of the years of service in Miami, but because of the way it ended. That matters.
Did anybody resent LeBron in 2016 when he won?
So that's different. I think it's different because LeBron did bring 2 championships to Miami. He won here. He gave us 2 championships.
Fair.
Jimmy Butler never did that, and I'm not even here to debate why or why not and whatever. But the facts are the facts. So I think like LeBron winning the championship in 2011 crushed Cleveland fans.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
That would be more similar, right? This is not Gary Payton even winning in Miami in 2006 and a bunch of Seattle fans being happy for him, right? Because it would have been his career was kind of at the end there, and they just sort of wanted to win one, right? Like that. If Chris Paul were to somehow go win one with Victor Wembanyama next year, Clippers fans would be ecstatic for him. Right? Like this is different. This is Jimmy Butler. The wound's fresh. He left. He quit on the team. There's fans that are still resentful for that. But to your point, also resentful towards the front office for kind of putting their contributions to getting into that situation. Right? And it ending up where it ended up. So it would have been a lot easier like if he just ended up in Phoenix because they wouldn't have done anything anyway.
There'd be a lot of gloating there. That I could see that. That would be if he had wound up there and they were eliminated from even the play-in tournament the way that the Suns were. Man,
Heat fans would be running. They'd be running up and down Biscayne Boulevard naked, just cheering about it.
They'd be doing that anyway, in all fairness. But yeah, you're right. They'd have extra motivation.
Well,
to do
Ultra's
so.
over, but yeah, it's but it would be crushing. One other reason why Heat fans should be rooting for against the Warriors in this play-in tournament is that if they lose, their pick could drop to 14, and it's top 10 protected. So it would technically be entered into the lottery, but it'd be very slim odds of that thing moving into the top 4 from 14. So, and the way the lottery works is that the top 4 picks are decided in the lottery, and then everything goes into inverse record order. So it would be like if you're at 14, you don't really jump to 8. You either jump into the top 4 or you kind of stay right or ish where you're at. So they would getting the 14th pick and then potentially your own pick in the lottery if you're Miami.
Yeah.
2 top 14 picks. That could be kind of interesting. But that would be the other reason in terms of just sort of the Excel spreadsheet part of this.
That would be the only reason why I'd root for a Golden State loss. Like the Jimmy factor doesn't play a role at it at all. I just also the idea of Miami getting another draft pick so that they can use that pick to either bolster their roster or acquire a superstar. That's much more enticing than getting any sort of comeuppance or revenge feeling against Jimmy Butler.
You know, I'm not like a guy who sits here and talks about how the media disrespects the Heat. That's not my thing. I think it's a little overstated by Heat fans here. Sure. I came across something on Monday morning, David, that kind of had me rethinking that stance. I want to get into that after this quick break. David, as you know, I'm not like the media hates the Heat. They never watch the Heat. They disrespect the Heat. They always count out the Heat. I'm like, look, unless you're a Lakers fan or a Warriors fan or a Knicks fan or a Celtics fan, even Celtics fans think they're disrespected. So if they're like, unless you're basically one of LeBron's teams or the Warriors or the Lakers or whatever, you always, no matter what fan base you are, you're going to feel like you don't get talked about enough. Imagine being a Denver Nuggets fan right now.
Yeah.
It's like we've had the best player in the world for half a decade now, and like they can't even afford to send a beat reporter to Denver. It's so most of the time I'm like, miss me with the, oh my God, nobody respects us. They've been a 500 team or a play-in team for the last 3 years in the regular season. And then sometimes they play well in the playoffs. So miss me with that. That said, I do think it is your duty as somebody who covers the NBA for a major outlet to watch all the teams. And look, if you're not watching the Wizards or the Hornets in March, I'm going to give you a break. But for a team that's in the playoff mix like Miami, you still got to watch them. You still got to watch Atlanta. You still got to watch Orlando. Heck, you still got to watch Dallas and Sacramento. Like, you got to do it. And I do wonder over the last... I came across something. I was listening to a podcast, and I really don't want to name names, but I was listening to a podcast this morning, David, a pretty big podcast, sports podcast. And they were talking about Jimmy Butler and how they were surprised. It sounded like they were surprised. And I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth here. I want to be very careful about this. But it did sound like they were surprised that Jimmy Butler, it doesn't take a lot of shots all the time. And they were talking about when Steph has been in and out as he's been nursing this injury towards the end of the season here. And there was that game a couple games ago. I forget who the Warriors were playing, but like Jimmy Butler took like 7 shots in the game.
Yeah.
And even against the Clippers, like he had that monster second quarter on Sunday and then kind of faded in the fourth quarter and didn't really touch the ball down the stretch. Yep. And the hosts were talking about it like, there's going to be points where Jimmy just has to take more shots. And it just feels like sometimes he doesn't want to shoot. And I'm like, where have you been for 3 years? And I've got Warriors fans texting me. And now these are Warriors fans. Like, these are not people whose jobs it is to watch the Miami Heat. But Warriors fans would text me, hey, is this always been a thing with Jimmy Butler where you think that like he could be a little bit more aggressive? And I'm like, this is the thing with Jimmy Butler. In the regular season, this is the thing. And it's something that I became the Jimmy Butler hater in Miami. I think first and foremost, Jimmy Butler hater. That's my thing, my brand. Because when we used to have our blame pie segment, I just gave all 10 slices to Jimmy Butler every time the Heat lost because he would take 7 shots. And then somebody would be like, well, Caleb Martin went 3 for 8. And I'd be like, I don't care what Caleb Martin does. Jimmy Butler took 7 shots. That's why the Heat lost in that game. So this has been a thing for years for Jimmy Butler in the regular season. And it's just a little funny to me that I'm starting to hear not even the Warriors fans, but like national media be like, oh, there's going to be a point where he has to take more shots. And I'm like, now I'm starting to wonder if my whole thing of Heat fans think that nobody watches them, but they're just sensitive. There might be some truth to that. I might have been wrong the entire time.
Well, think about when the majority of fans and media do watch Jimmy Butler. They watched him. They didn't watch him last year because he wasn't available for the playoffs. He got hurt. They watched him the year before when he was magnificent in carrying a play-in team to the NBA Finals before he got hurt. And unfortunately, he wasn't able to step up and provide that kind of incredible output that he had been doing for most of the playoffs. They've seen him before in the Orlando bubbles. Like, those are the iconic images that stand out and resonate. And that's what you remember. You don't remember him putting up a goose egg or stinking it up against the Milwaukee Bucks the year after the Orlando bubble when they got swept by the Bucks on their way to a championship. That's not what you remember. You remember the previous season where he carried that team into the NBA Finals in the Orlando bubble. And so that's what you think of when you think of Jimmy. And then you watch him again in a mid-March, mid-April game that doesn't count for anything or has some implications, but not necessarily the playoffs. And you watch him put up those 7-shot nights and you go, huh, that's not the Jimmy Butler I remember. That's not putting up 40-something points and bent over the stanchion for having to carry this team, et cetera. That's not the one I remember putting up those kind of big numbers against Atlanta and Boston and Milwaukee, et cetera. He's not hitting big shots. He's not even taking any shots at all. So they don't watch him. And that's fine. Like, it's so difficult to expect people to watch every game. We cover the league, and we probably watch more basketball.
No, but what about the people that do cover the league? I'm not talking about fans. I don't care about fans. Like, watch your team. That's like, no, I'm serious. If you're a Warriors fan, why would you watch the Heat at 4:30 in the afternoon at Pacific time? Like, that doesn't make any sense. But professionals who do this for a living, they should be watching the Heat in the regular season. And I think that Jimmy Butler has done the best job of branding than any other star in the league over the last 2 decades. The playoff Jimmy thing is like, he's like this established, grinded out winner. And it's like, first of all, he's never won a championship.
Yeah.
It's sort of like the Damian Lillard thing. And then
you remember last year when they had the commercial brands, it was like playoff, you're not a playoff riser and everything like that. And
right.
The irony of it was that Jimmy Butler wasn't even available for the playoffs, and he's a guy who's done it most. Like he's the one who's become almost synonymous with being able to raise his game in the playoffs more than anybody else. And yet he's not even available in the playoffs as they're asking Jason Tatum on his way to a championship, et cetera. Like that is irony right there. And you're right. I mean, the branding of it, like, I don't know. Like, I mean, there have been big moments. You can't take it away from him.
Of course
but
not.
Yet we're all left with this kind of lasting image. Like 10 years from now, we're all going to remember Jimmy Butler as a gamer, and we're not going to remember those nights where he didn't take a lot of shots in March or anything else, you know?
You were talking about Donovan Mitchell in our full show this morning, and it's like he's had huge, incredible, some of the greatest playoff performances we've ever seen. Stuff that blows Jimmy Butler's performances out of the water, frankly.
Right.
And there is no playoff Donovan. There's no, it's playoff Jimmy. And he's created it because he coasts in the regular season. Again, I'm coming off as a Jimmy Butler hater. Look at the numbers, man. He coasts in the regular season. That's not a hater. It's pointing out facts. It's different. He coasts in the regular season and then ramps up his game in the playoffs. And building a brand off of that's genius by him. I mean, it's frankly genius by him. Because LeBron would never get that treatment. If he coasted in the regular season, he would get slammed for it. If Steph coasted in the regular season, he would get slammed for it. Jimmy Butler is the only one who's allowed to coast in the regular season. And we're like, well, just wait for playoff Jimmy. It's like, so he just gets to take 5 months off. Don't take my word for it. Take Pat Riley's word for it. That's why they didn't want to give him the extension. We're not going to pay you like a superstar, and we're not going to pay you, $2 million a game or whatever math ended up being for you to take the regular season off and just show up in the playoffs if we're lucky to get that far. That's where it was. And it's just sort of funny to hear pundits and national media and people talk about like, this is crazy. Like there's going to be games where Jimmy Butler has to take more shots and just wondering like why he isn't.
It almost, I've watched a lot of basketball over the course of my life. And it almost feels like that was something that was reserved, that ability to just ignore what they accomplished over the regular season and just watch the playoffs. That was something that was reserved for like role players. Like, he's a guy who can step it up. He can give you 10 points off the bench, etc. Yeah.
Right.
Big shot Bob. Like big shot Bob. Yeah. You know what? You could be big shot Bob too when you play with Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant, Tim Duncan, Hakeem Olajuwon, and on and on. Like, yeah, you could hit those big shots. That's how he's like. I mean, Chauncey Billups, Mr. Big Shot. Where the hell was he when he was stinking it up in Denver and for the Boston Celtics? I mean, playing for Rick Pitino. Does anybody even remember that? Like, he was a terrible player.
In Billups' defense, Pitino might have
Don't
been the worst
Chauncey
coach in
Billups.
NBA history.
Don't defend Chauncey Billups. Don't
Why
defend
not?
Chauncey Billups. Because he's Chauncey Billups. Like, I mean, the Detroit Pistons broke Miami more than they should have. Maybe should have not. Mr. Big Shot. It was such a
I'll defend
misnomer.
Billups before I defend Patino, though. But you're right.
That's
The
fine.
Mr. Big Shot thing was that was pretty crazy.
Yeah. It's good that you have those opportunities. You know who was putting up those numbers during the previous 45 minutes alongside Robert Horry was all those other Hall of Famers that I just listed. Yeah. Good for him to get that
Derek
shot.
Fisher was a little like this too. He was, it wasn't Mr. Big Shot. He had another. Didn't he have any? He had like a couple of big shots in the playoffs. Big shots, credit to. But he was, scoring like he averaged like 7 points a game, like in the regular season. It was crazy. And I'm not saying that Jimmy Butler is Derek Fisher. Please, like, don't take this out of context, please, people.
Man, you really are a hater. I can't believe you just compared him to Chris Mim.
And I don't want to do the thing where I just say the media, because I hate that. There are people who are locked into the Heat during the regular season. I remember Brian Windhorst did a great job covering, basically said Jimmy Butler was available for 60 games last year, and he was really mentally there for maybe half of those. And I was like, that was a very astute observation, and it's a line that I stole because I thought it was so good. Like, there are people doing the work, there are people doing the job, but it's just something I'm keeping an eye on these playoffs. If the Warriors advance, and I think they'll beat Memphis, and I think they'll get to the playoffs as the 7th seed. If they advance, the people looking and being like, "Oh, weird, Jimmy just sort of disappeared that quarter. What happened? Oh, Jimmy didn't really take a lot of shots that game. I wonder what happened." It'll be interesting to see how Heat fans react to that, because that's a thing Heat fans have been talking about for years.
What is your expectation for Jimmy? Like, now that he has that 1A score, like, all we've seen of even this version of playoff Jimmy over the last 6 seasons is him stepping up in those big moments during the playoffs, etc. Like, is he going to take a back seat? To what degree does it take a back seat? To what degree does he try to find his scoring and take it to another level? Is he going to be putting up 20 plus points per game alongside Steph Curry? I don't. It's kind of tricky. I don't know exactly how he makes that sort of adjustment now when he becomes this other player that he's supposed to become.
I think he's struggling with that because, again, against the Clippers, he had that quarter where he just was absolutely playoff Jimmy. He was doing all of it. He was hitting that. The thing I always say, I know when Jimmy Butler's engaged, when he puts his shoulder into you and then he gets about 4 feet away from the basket and then hits you with that leaning floater, that leaning push shot, floater shot. That's the Jimmy Butler move. That's when I know that he's using his muscle and he's totally engaged. And he hit a couple of those against the Clippers. I was like, oh, there he is. He came out. This was a game with a lot at stake, and he showed up. And then he disappeared in the fourth quarter. But I also think that they were trying to get Steph involved. Steph had a monster fourth quarter for Golden State. So I think that's more Jimmy trying to figure out his spot when playing alongside Steph, especially in a fourth quarter where Steph is feeling it, and then Steph fades at the end of it. And by then, it's almost like, is Steph fading? It's really hard to figure that out in the moment if you're Jimmy Butler or anybody, that's going to be tough. I think my expectation is, as long as they make the playoffs, there'll be games where he looks awesome, and there's going to be games where he doesn't look awesome. Yep. Yeah, and that's really it. But he's 34 years old, 35 years old. Like, that's sort of the I guess I don't know what else there should be expected. He hasn't had a monster playoff game since game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals in 2023. And that's not me saying he can't do it again. It's just pointing out that it's been a minute. So to assume that we know what to expect at this stage in Jimmy Butler's career. By the way, have you seen any reporting on the limp that he banged knees at the end of that Clippers game, and he was limping pretty badly. I haven't looked, but I haven't really seen a report on whether or not he's going to be available for this game. So
no, I mean, we've seen him limping around the Heat locker room for years now. Like, that's just who he's been for a long time. So I wouldn't be surprised if he has another injury, and that kind of takes the pressure off him then, because it's like, oh, you know what, I just got hurt, and then you don't look to the age. But I wonder if Warriors fans might have a little buyer's remorse if they don't see him rise to that challenge. Like, I know there was a lot of
last year when he got hurt. He went to the Formula One race and started saying stuff.
Oh man, the hate is strong this morning.
I'm just pointing out facts.
Facts.
I didn't make up. This is no fake news. I'm just telling you what happened here.
You're right.
He's not on the team anymore.
Damn you, Rowan. I can't believe you, Rowan Nodkarni, asking these questions when Jimmy was a little buzzed. taking
Roland
advantage.
didn't ask him that. That's not
I
fair.
know. I know.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcast app. We've got plenty more episodes between now and Wednesday night's play-in game. We're going to have a crossover with Locked On Bulls. In-depth breakdown of what is a playoff game here. Not raising any banners for it, but it's a big game, and you're going to want to stay locked into Locked On Heat. Thanks for listening.